Oh, it's my line, huh? All right, it needed to be said. Welcome to the Horseman Podcast, a show where we explore a form. Hold up. Sorry. I was hearing the echo and it was too bad. All right, let's roll this again. All right, it needed to be said. Welcome to the Horseman Podcast, a show where we explore open forum conversations. We are your host.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Greg. All right. Today it is June 12th at 3 o'clock PST, and we're going to be exploring movies today. You know what? Stay with us. So what's up, Josh? How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, my friend. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. Yo, are you excited to talk movies today or what?
Dude, movies is like the one thing that really binds us all together. It's something we can be behind. I am excited to talk about movies. Because
oh yeah, dude,
movies are fantastic.
Yeah, what's the last movie you saw?
I think the last movie I saw. Oh gosh, I've watched a lot of TV shows recently, so I think the last movie. Last movie I saw, Army of the Dead on Netflix. If you haven't gone check out Army of the Dead on Netflix, go freaking watch it because it's about zombies and it's awesome and it has Dave Bautista in it. So go watch it.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. I haven't seen it, so I definitely will give it a watch.
2 thumbs up. 2 thumbs up.
It's a 2 thumbs up.
It's a 2 thumbs up movie. It's fantastic. You're gonna love it.
Okay, all right. I will definitely put that on after this podcast.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Definitely.
But yeah, where should we get started with movies, man? There's so much to talk about.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Let's start at the beginning. Dude, what's the oldest movie you ever watched?
Oldest movie I ever watched.
Or let's even go further back. Do you even know how movies got started or even the concept of motion pictures?
Okay, so this one I actually do know. So like the first film that was used to make something, it was like The Running Horse or whatnot, and it was just a film reel made from a bunch of still pictures put together of a horse galloping. At least I think that's how it was made. But I know it was about a horse running.
Yes. You know why that was? Because why a horse running?
Probably the easiest thing to grab.
No, actually. So, why the horse grab? So there's these 2 guys, at the Kentucky Derby, right? And his buddy goes to him, and he's like, yo. And the other guy's like, what up? He's like, did you know when a horse gallops at full gallop, full speed, all 4 legs are off the ground? And he was like, bullshit. And he's like, no, it's for real. You want to place money on it? I do. So they made a bet. And at that time, we're like so blessed today where it's just like we have movie cameras and then, like continuous shutter. Back then, it's just like, oh man, we got to get, 8 separate cameras and we're going to put them all on tripwires as well too. So they set up these tripwires across the track, and then when this horse was in full gallop, and then bam, they got it. And then he was like, yo, pay up. you know? But in essence, that kind of started the addiction of, everybody's just like, oh, dude, I want to see like more motion pictures.
So that's kind. It was more so on the thing of like, I'm gonna prove this guy wrong, and I'm gonna make it amazing so that everyone enjoys this.
Oh yeah. And then after that, that correct me if I'm wrong, but that series was later published to a museum, and then kind of got like all these different, aspiring photographers and videographers to do actually more of that.
Huh.
So they started doing more series photography.
I wonder if there's. Because there's got to be some place where it's like, the first like 10 movies ever made. There's got to be some place where they store it.
Oh,
Maybe,
definitely.
maybe possibly it's like maybe online or on YouTube. Well, everything's online nowadays, but
Oh yeah.
it.
Yeah. So like the first movies, I think those are like really interesting because they're very like theatrical, right?
Right.
But like if you go over to France, God love the French, you had the Lumiere brothers, and they were the first set of people to create a documentary.
Hmm.
And yeah, so think about it. When you first created, the movie camera, everybody wanted to act and play in it
Right.
instead of, capturing everyday life. But that's not what the Lumineers did over in France. What they did was they started shooting just like bits of business, like people crossing the street, a train arriving at the station. And when people went to see this movie, I believe it was called Train Arriving at a Station, but in French, right? When the people saw the train, coming, they all screamed duck for cover. Some of them left the audience because they had never been exposed to a screen before.
Huh.
So like think about it. It's just like all the fast car chases, guns blazing, like crazy camera work. We all take that for granted because it's like in a screen. But like back then, they never saw a screen. The closest thing that they had to a screen was their mirror. You know, even then, most people didn't even own one. It's just like it's like it's a little hand mirror. But now they're everywhere around us. It's absolutely insane to see. That change of technology.
Right. Yeah, I
Hmm.
wonder really, because the effect of movies on society. I mean, it's got to be almost like I. The question has to be as like, where in a society will we be without movies? Because I feel like movies depict what's going on in society sometimes. Because we see the changes now, but I think back then it was really more of a way for people to go, all right, we're going to take 2 hours out of our week or 2 hours of our day. We're going to go to the movie theater and pay. At that time, it was like 25 cents or 50 cents to see a movie.
No, it was actually a nickel.
Nickel. Ooh, a nickel. Ooh, that's got to be.
Yeah,
Wow.
man. A shiny nickel.
Shiny nickel. Drop that right off in the box, pick a movie ticket, go and enjoy the movie. Like,
Yeah.
that's just
that-
fantastic.
Yeah, they had a thing called Nickelodeons.
Oh, good God. Is that
Yeah,
really
dude,
is that really where it came from? Please tell me.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. The greatest pun
Yeah.
of all time.
Yeah, man. No, this is what's crazy. So a lot of the film terms that you hear actually started, way back when.
Huh.
Yeah, like Nickelodeon. You would go to your local theaters just like, oh, it's a nickel, and then you would go see a Nickelodeon.
That's
It's
fantastic.
just like let's play. And then this is also what was really interesting as well too. So they would have theaters playing movies on a loop. So
Okay.
so before, like it's just like once the end of the movie happened, they just started all over, and you can walk in and out as you pleased. There was not necessarily a beginning, and there wasn't necessarily an end. It was just a continuous loop of moving images. Now, who changed that was the famous director Alfred Hitchcock.
Ooh, love Hitchcock.
Oh yeah, dude! If you haven't checked out Hitchcock, you should at least see one movie of his.
You got to see at least one Hitchcock movie. I feel like that's one of those like classic movies you got to see. Like if you're gonna watch if your first movie is gonna be any movie, it's got to be a Hitchcock movie.
Yeah, dude, it's gotta be like Hitchcock, maybe George Méliès. His film Trip to the Moon, also back in the early days of film, was also very groundbreaking as well. And we actually owe a lot to George Méliès. Who George Méliès was he was a magician. He was a French magician, and how he built his camera is he took a projector, and then he just reversed the roll.
Oh, there's a movie like that. What's it called? Christine came out in 1983. It's a car movie, a little bit like Transformers, but in one of the scenes, it was a destroyed car that came back into its pre-built form, and basically they shot the scene backwards and they just reversed the film, and it was like, oh. That's how that happened. It was like that. I mean, I haven't seen Christine to the part. I've seen that one bit, but they just reverse. I mean, it's just reverse film, like how you were saying with Georgia Méliès.
Yeah,
that's fascinating. It's like,
yeah,
oh, the links that you have to go to.
Yeah, and he would do a bunch of different camera tricks. So he would make things appear and disappear. And how he would do that is like when he was rolling the film, he's just like, now I want this to disappear. He would stop, he's like, everybody hold still, let's get this guy out of here, and then roll the film, and then bam, like magic, he was gone. And like to us as an audience, that is like the first practical effect.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was practical and special at the same time. Practical meaning is just like it was done on set, but also special effect because what would appear, in the next frame is like, oh my god.
Yeah, and I guess that's really kind of using your career background as a way for you to jumpstart into the business because you said he was a magician. So I think naturally for him, that would be like, oh, I mean, this is kind of like my thing. Let's just make stuff disappear and blow people's minds out of the waters.
Well, also as well too, like you gotta think about it. He had no reference, whatsoever. He didn't have like a Steven Spielberg or a George Lucas, to look up to.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh man, it's just like I know people come to my shows. However, people are going to be watching these more often.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I want to perform for them, and do stuff that's not even possible here to do in the IRL.
Yeah.
So he's just like, oh, you know what? I'll start doing this. I'll start doing that. And he came up with a bunch of beautiful tricks, And then also kind of set the first stages for Luma matting and like, I wouldn't even say green screening, but Luma doing the Luma mat, stuff. And what I mean by Luma is like, okay, so back then, right? So you got film. Sick, right?
Right.
But it can only capture one image. And if you wanted something special, like in the image, you would have to cut, or like you wanted like a different background, you would have to double expose it. So, and the only way to do that is you would cover part of the image with black, and what you wanted to show through, just leave that open, capture that image, and then when you re-rolled the film and then went forward, you would get this double exposure. Yeah.
That is... Wow, that's... Because, again, like you said, no reference. So, that's a lot of,
reference.
That's a lot of, trial and error and ingenuity going on there. That's kind of like what I like about old movies, is you really see things in the beginning stages, and then you see how it gets better. And I think there's a lot of movies back then that used full sets and real sets. Now we get a whole lot of green screen, but that's just because, the special effects are out the freaking wazoo. I mean, you go from a movie where it's just a magician doing really breakthrough stuff, and then you take probably one of the biggest green screen feature films, which is the Avengers Endgame, and you put the side by side, and you see way more green screen and special effects. But I think as far as like the beginning ones, it was really kind of a first because people had never really seen a kind of ingenuity like things disappearing on set before, right in behind their eyes without help of a computer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then also as well too, like let's not like push away Endgame whatsoever. Endgame is like kind of the new future of stuff.
Yeah.
Because they used AI technology in tracking Hulk's facial emotions. Like if we go back a couple years, to Avatar, it's just like, dude, they had to go like almost each and every other frame, to get those details correct. Now like going, to whenever Endgame came out, was it 2 years ago?
2019, yeah.
2019, yeah, 2 years ago. They didn't have to do that.
No.
It's just like, and the technology has shifted, and that's what I've always enjoyed about this industry, and actually almost every other industry. It's just like, it's always progressing. It's just like, it's just a different format now.
Yeah. It has been interesting since like the Avatar came out, and I think that was like one of the really kickoff movies to the new age. And then
definitely
followed up by the last few movies that have come out. And I think one of the really like big turning points, I think, as far as like CGI come into camp, and I think I have a note about this somewhere. It was like I think it was Jurassic Park was the first one to use photorealistic CG creatures. That was a big like turning point. And of course Toy Story, which came out in 1995, the original one, first full-length CGI animated film. Like, and then you go from Toy Story, and then you jump right into Jurassic Park. Or Jurassic Park actually came before Story, 2 years earlier. But it was, you look at the two movies, and it almost looks like Jurassic Park looks real enough, like real. But that's just because Toy Story was done on a computer. But it was still something so futuristic. And then 10, 15 years later, Avatar comes out, and then it breaks through this whole spiel of the New Age movies. And thanks to the ingenuity of people whose brains are probably a little bit larger than Earth, I would say, we have
definitely
these...
out of this world. Yeah.
We have all these beautiful, wonderful works of art that we get to... And thanks to even bigger technology, we can just watch them whenever we want, as long as you can, download them illegally or, watch them, stream. We don't want to cause anybody to get in trouble with the FBI, so we'll have to promote legal activity.
But if you do...
Yeah. Wink, wink. It's
wink.
Great.
That's
it's fantastic. But,
no,
go ahead.
Keep going. No, keep going.
Well, I was going to say was the earlier movies, like in the 30s, we had you had the Great Depression come in, and then you had World War II come in, and I think really around those times, they were depressing times, and there was a lot of like evil stuff going on in the world. The magic still happened in a theater where people could come in and watch a show and just kind of take their minds off of everything, and people called Disney crazy for doing this. But Disney created the first full-length animation film drawn with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in 1937, which kicked off Disney. I would say Disney's reign along the 20th century, creating all these fantastic, wonderful family cartoons that all of us cherish and love to this day. And classic movies like that are so much fun to dig back on and really look about how they came about. There's a great Disney documentary that really shows the way Disney came up and about. And you go from a little storage shed in a little small town to probably the biggest company, one of the biggest companies on the face of the earth, as far as movie and entertainment go.
Oh yeah, hands down. And then also as well too, it's just like, let's go back. humans have always needed entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was always storytellers. You can go to every single culture around the world, and it's just like you have storytellers.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about the movie platform, is just like it became, this magical place where it's just like, oh man, you can capture a time period. You can say a little piece, and as long as we have a format to play it, heck, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was... So, and, that's what I really enjoy, like, there's two industries that are always going to do well, that's always going to be, like, the food industry, because people need to eat, and then also the entertainment industry, whether it be movies, music, all that, because people like to be entertained, and then also as well, too, it's just, like, there is a connection, like, whether, you're eating, like, a piece of fruit or like watching or listening to your favorite song, and it's just like it kind of slows you down and it makes you self-reflect, and it's beautiful to have that catharsis.
Yeah, and with the whole entertainment thing, you're going back on the storytellers. I mean, you first had, really kind of a big entertainment back in the Dark Ages was jousting. You had these big events where knights from all corners of the globe, they would say, and come to this castle and win a prize, whether that be the hand of the fair maiden or a pot of gold, or in the case of Shrek, a chance to go on a mighty quest so that he can marry the beautiful maiden. But there so much entertainment, jousting, shows of sportsmanship with swords and firearms, battleships at sea. I remember...
Or even William Shakespearean theaters.
Which, if there's one place I really want to go in the world, is I actually do want to go see a Shakespeare play in the Globe Theatre in London. I actually want to go and see it. I think that would be an unbelievable experience. So many movies also have classic arts. Like, there's so many Shakespeare movies. And some of them are so well done, and others kind of lack. But it's so much fun to see different people's versions of movies. What's the movie that's the story that will become public? I think it's Gatsby. Gatsby's about to be public domain. So I can't wait to see so many people take that storyline and make a movie out of it in their own way. And that's where I also love movies too, is the creativity in it as well. We've seen it with the Spider-Man movies. So many Spider-Man movies. So many of them. Yeah. We've had 3 this century. We've had 3 different Spider-Mans this century. 4 if you're including the Spider-Verse.
What about the TV show? Are we counting that?
Oh, which was it? There was
it was like in the 1980s.
1980s.
Right?
I don't recall ever watching that Spider-Man show.
Oh, dude, that was clowning.
I think I only just watched the movies. Of course, probably the most beloved ones. I know Tom Holland's like really good now, but I think the 3 most beloved ones were the ones with Tobey Maguire. I think people really remember that. Although you can't knock off what Marvel's doing with Tom Holland and Spider-Man. That's just incredible. Who was the second guy in between? There was.
Who was the second guy? Oh my gosh, Andrew Garfield.
Andrew Garfield. There we go. I get it's Andrew Garfield. I don't know why it's so hard to remember his name with the Spider-Man movies, but I want to say it's. I don't know why. I feel like his name starts with Brandon in the Spider-Man movies. I don't know why. It's like I feel like he looks like a Brandon Garfield rather than Andrew. I don't know.
Brandon Garfield.
But he had.
Forget about Andrew. I want to talk to Brandon.
So you got Toby, Brandon, a.k.a. Andrew, and you got Tom. I think people really go for the Tobey Maguire ones. I haven't seen the 90s, earlier than the 2000 Spider-Man movies. I'll admit it's kind of hard for me to watch the older DC movies with the exceptions of the Spider-Mans. I think the Clooney Batman really kind of triggered me.
Marvel.
Yeah.
It's a DC.
Did I DC?
You did say DC, Marvel.
Oh, shoot.
You're thinking of Batman.
Yeah. I think the older 90 movies got to me, with how, because Marvel didn't really have like blockbuster movies in the 20th century. They had a few, but it wasn't how DC dominated the 20th or the late 20th century. They had a bunch of Batman films come out, a bunch of Spider-Man movies, Superman movies come out. See, I did it again. I think really in the dawn of the 21st century with the Spider-Man ones with Tobey Maguire, you see a turn of where Marvel takes front and center for a while.
Also,
and then I think they get big.
As well too, I think you can't compare like apples to oranges.
Right.
You know? They're like they have two completely different vibes, you know.
Yeah.
Like I'm not like a super comic nerd fan. You know, this is just my observation. But it seems like to me at least, you know, the DC, you know, that type of universe, it's kind of dark like naturally, like across the board.
Yep.
You know? And then like over on the Marvel side, it is like dark too, don't get me wrong, but it has a more lighthearted feel darkness.
Yes.
You know, where it's just like, oh, we can get through it.
Yeah, we can get through
you know?
it.
And DC, it's a little bit on the more grittier side, you know?
I think they really tackle some of the issues as far as like what really is going on inside. Like with a superhero, you have to think so much weight is on them. And I think DC really captures like really what they're feeling, because like Batman's like super creepy and he like creeps me out all the time because Batman's just weird. He's freaking weird. And then you got Spider-Man when you get Spider-Man or Superman with us. I keep saying Spider-Man. Why do I keep saying that?
Because we just had a conversation about Spider-Man for like 5 minutes. All right.
Superman is just. This might be a little bit over the top. The Ben Affleck played Batman. Who was the newest?
Henry
Cavill. Cavill, I think it is. I think Henry Cavill really like encapsulate that's like you look at Superman, you go, oh, he's huge. Whereas I feel with like the first four big Superman movies, you kind of look at him and he kind of almost looks normal, like almost too normal to be Superman.
But, yeah, dude, because he has to be Clark Kent too.
What was it? That one. I had a note about it. I think it was.
And Superman 3, where he has to fly around the Earth, go the opposite direction, to spin back time. That's how it works.
That was so super. That was very trippy. I was like, wait, what's going? Oh, he's going back. Wait, why is he going? Oh, yeah, counterclockwise, clockwise. I think I was like maybe 9 when I first saw those Superman movies. That was a big ask, but I could now, seeing Avengers, it's kind of cringy for me to go back and watch those movies, but it's still so much fun to watch them because the nostalgia of those movies are fantastic. I think it was the second one. I think the second one has the one where they get that computer guy to mess with the satellite's weather, or like mess with the weather, and Superman has to go around and fly. I can't remember if it's the second or third one. I think that's my favorite one. The freaking ski course off the top of the mountain, and he lands in the streets of the city, and like like skis, a full-on snowshoe. It's like sunny, whatever. It's like, oh, I guess that's how it works in the city.
I have not seen this.
You have not seen this?
No.
It's so I think it's Superman 2 or Superman 3. Right. The basic plot is obviously there's this evil villain, and I believe it's Lex Luthor. I could be wrong. He hires a computer genius to mess with the satellite that controls the weather, and he like destroys crops and creates all this havoc, and Superman has to go to stop him, and then he gets poisoned and has to fight all that back. So it's like it's a real good movie.
Yeah, dude, it's Superman 3.
Superman 3? Okay, yeah. I can't remember if it's the second one or the third one. I get those two confused all the freaking time.
Oh, no worries.
You were talking about Charlie Sheen earlier.
Oh yeah, man.
Charlie Sheen is one of those actors that I think people will always remember, And the funny thing is I can remember two of his movies, or I think three of his movies. It was the Major League series. I think there were two of them, might have been three, and then Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh, definitely Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
That was fantastic. But I feel like Charlie Sheen, even though I don't remember a whole lot of his movies, is again one of those actors that will always go down as like really one of the favorites, I think, of people. Andrew Garfield's one of them. I can only remember two Andrew Garfield movies, which is the Spider-Man movie he played in, and it wasn't Dunkirk. It was or maybe it was Dunkirk. Yeah, it was Dunkirk. He played in see, now I can't remember. Now I gotta look this up. But it was a military movie that he played in, and let me see if I can find it. Hacksaw Ridge. That's the name of it. Hacksaw Ridge. He was fantastic in both of them, and Hacksaw Ridge was a break open. Do you remember?
I haven't seen it.
Do you remember much from? If you haven't seen Hacksaw Ridge, you gotta watch it. It's a great movie.
All right.
Do you remember much from Andrew Garfield Spider-Man? Because I don't remember much from it. I don't really remember what the plot was.
Dude, I just know that kid was too cool to be bullied.
Yeah.
That was my biggest thing. They made him skateboard. I'm like, dude, not against like Andrew Garfield skateboarding whatsoever. But I'm like, dude, you're skateboarding right off the bat. It's just like, dude, you ain't going to get bullied. Yeah. It's just like, you have your skate peeps about to back you up.
Yeah, that was.
They're going to be like, hey, what you doing? He got a banker board. He was just like, you ain't going to mess with his trucks. You know, like.
I think one of the cool ones was that I think Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were both way too old for the roles, but they both performed them with excellence. And I think
also as well too, like you gotta look at like Tobey Maguire, like he was like a senior year in high school, about to enter college.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just like, yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield, he just looked old.
Yeah.
It's just like, dude, that a college student.
Yeah, that's a college student. I think, what was it? Did they make Tom Holland looks like he's about to go into freshman year in high school. Like, that's how young he looks, and he's so perfect for that, like, coming into high school look, because it's like, you look like the nerdy kid who sits in science class. Like, sorry, buddy, that's just what you look like. And I think actors have a tell with how they perform. I think it was in the older times you saw action characters make action movies, romance characters make romance movies. I think once you get later into the later parts with really rare actors earlier, is you see them crossing. Because what was it? Her name? Older lady.
Well, a lot of actors get typecast.
Yeah, typecast. That's the type.
That's the thing. You know, because it's just like, oh, you play the villain, you're always going to be the villain. And it's like, oh, you play the hero, you'll probably be the hero all the time, or at least a supporting character, you know? But nowadays, it's just like you're starting to see more of that crossover. Yeah. You know? And I think it is super, like, exciting to see, you know? Like, one of my favorite crossovers, I know it's not, like, necessarily, like, a huge, like, whoa, you know? It is seeing Will Ferrell in Everything Must Go.
Oh, yeah, I forgot he was in that one.
Yeah, you know, it's like, it is kind of like a complete 180, you know? You see him in all these, like, funny, you know, like, shows or, like, movies, you know? It's just like, oh, man, but in, like, Everything Must Go, it's like a complete 180.
Yeah.
You know? And it's just like him, like, kind of growing up, and like also as well too, it shows like the dynamic range of like a really good actor as well too, because even though like some of these actors, you know, may be typecast in like, you know, like Will Ferrell, like in a lot of like comedies, it's just like it's also really like, you know, satisfying to see him do a drama role, and it's just like, wow, you know, much applause, well done.
Yeah, it was like Adam Sandler in
Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems, yeah, that was
brilliant.
brilliant. Because Adam Sandler is he's hilarious, dude. Love that guy.
Okay.
Then he comes in Uncut Gems, and you're like, this is different, but I like it. I like it. It was a good movie.
Yeah, and I was totally like immersed with who he was, you know, as a character. I never didn't think for a moment it's like, oh, that's Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like
it's one
like,
of those
no,
movies.
like-
It's one of those movies that draws you in, and that's what I love so much about movies is you really do get connected with the characters. In Army of the Dead, you're gonna see that when you watch it. You're gonna see a lot of that. I think there's so many movies out there where you start off the movie. There's a lot of times I won't see the description of the movie. If it looks good, I'll click on it. And what tends to happen with that is it's a little bit more magical than usual. You get so connected with the first people you see on screen that when they go, they're like, I like them. They were great. But then that's what adds to the magic of the movie, where you draw the audience in, and then boom, hit them with a surprise. It's like, oh, you didn't see that coming? We did. That's where you put in the movie.
oh my god,
it's
you
great.
You have a completely different take of how you view movies, because I don't even look at movies that way at all. Like how I view movies is I just look at what's the premise. It's just like what are like what's the scenario are our characters going to experience?
Yeah.
You know, and then like kind of the plateau. It's just like this is kind of like, you know, like the meat of the movie where it's just like, okay, what is this building up to? And then boom, a payoff where it's just like, oh, sick.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like whatever the twist or whatever the joke may be, it's just like, oh, dude, that's well played.
Yeah.
You know.
It's
like instead of trying like for me like viewing movies as a beginning, middle, and end, it's just like I view it as, all right, what is the premise, what is the plateau, and what is the payoff? You know, and sometimes, you know, like what I like viewing movies is just like, because whatever that payoff is, you can potentially use that payoff and build on it later if you want to.
Yeah.
Compared to like an end, it's just like, oh yeah, we closed the book. And it's just like, are you going to reopen it? And it's just like, oh man, we didn't think about that. And then it becomes a scramble to try and make things happen. But like viewing it as like apprentice, plateau, and payoff, it's just like, oh, sick. You know, it's just like it's more of a satisfying ending for me, because like for me personally, it's just like, oh, I saw what their characters were going, what was their situation, what they had to go through, and then the payoff at the end is just like, wow, gorgeous.
Yeah, it's movies that man, I can't stop saying how much I love movies. Like, it's just,
oh yeah, dude.
It's so much fun. When was the last time you went to a movie theater to see?
Last week.
Last week,
dude. Right? When the pandemic is practically over, but it's just like when they're like, you can go to movies. Boom! I was in.
So what movie did you see?
I actually saw two movies. I saw that new Saw film. I think it's called the Book of Spiral. But let me like clarify real quick.
Book of Saw?
Hold up. It's like Spiral.
Spiral.
Yeah, Spiral. Saw.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. I haven't heard of this one.
Dude, this is actually pretty good.
Really?
Yeah,
I will
like,
have to look into
star
this.
Chris Rock, out of all people, right? For a Saw film.
Shoot.
Dude, no, like...
It
no,
stars Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson. Now I have to go see the movie.
Dude, it's good. like we're all familiar, you know, like, you know, with do you know how Saw started, by the way?
No.
It actually started as a short film on YouTube.
Huh.
Yeah. So what was his name? James Wan, I believe?
Okay.
Let me like clarify. Yeah, James Wan Saw. So, you know the first scene in Saw, like the first actual movie, right?
Right.
You know, where it's just like you have this, person and they have a bear trap on their head. That was a YouTube short.
Huh.
Yeah. And James 1, people were freaked out by it. It's just like, oh my God, what a sick horror film, you know? And then people were like, is there more? And he's like, well, yes, there is. But I need money to make the feature. And then we're like, oh, dude, I'll give my money to that. I want to see where this goes.
So
and
this
hence
was
the Saw series.
So this was crowdfunded?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, not crowdfunded. I would say crowdfunded, but crowd-inspired.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Where it's just like, all right. Where it's just like, it has enough attention, enough people are talking about it. And you get the Hollywood execs, they're kind of like in laser focus mode, right?
Right.
They're like, what's the next big thing? What's the next big thing? And then when they hear it's like, what's this crowd talking about? And they're like, oh, dude, did you see the short film on YouTube? Saw? And they're like, what? Never heard of thing. And it's just like, dude, you gotta check it. Like, I know you get like a lot of like movie scripts or whatnot, but this one you gotta actually check it. And then it's just like, oh, I'm going to give you money. Make this film.
We need money. All right, here's money. Yay, let's make a movie. Oh, it's a hit. Let's give you more money. Make another one.
Yeah, exactly. And hence the, Saw series.
What was the second movie that you saw?
The second movie I saw, it was an old Japanese kung fu film called The Lady Hermit.
The Lady Hermit.
Strange movie, by the way. But it was a pretty cool kung fu movie. I believe it was 1960s.
1971.
1971, so... Yeah, like, it was a strange kung fu movie, saw that in theaters with... that was the first film I saw in theaters. And that was with my best friend Tom, down in Astoria. They just played it, and we were the only two people in the theater.
Huh.
So it was just like, dude, this is like a private showing for us, because we both haven't seen a film, during like the pandemic. So it's just like being able to go in, it's just like, whoa, like having the whole theater to yourself and watching a kung fu movie as well too. And then they also did a huge show along with it as well too, because what I enjoyed is to get people back to their theater was that they were making bombing sandwiches, and like handing out beer, and just like, and me and Tom were like, yeah, dude, let's go do that, we were the only two people that were in the theater, but it's just like, oh man, they gave us popcorn, these bombing sandwiches, dude, it was a tremendous time.
What is the longest movie you've ever seen?
Longest movie, it's gotta be The Wolf of Wall Street, I believe. Isn't that close to a 4-hour movie?
I think so.
Yeah.
If it does, then it overtakes the one that I was thinking of. Because I think for me it goes Wolf of Wall Street, Seven Samurai, and The Avengers Endgame. I don't know if you've seen Seven Samurai.
Yeah, dude, I've seen Seven Samurai.
Yeah, fantastic. I had to watch that for school. I was like, I get to watch a 3-hour and 27-minute movie for school? Yeah, and we're doing it in class. What? Yeah, I changed their blocks around, so we're going to watch the movies, and we're going to watch the Seven Samurai in class today. Bring your popcorn. We're staying late. We're like, movie time in school! Yeah! It's this old, I think it's 1950-something, 54, 55, something like that.
Yeah, 1954.
1954.
3.5 hours.
That's a long movie. Avengers Endgame. Wow, how long is that movie?
That's 3 hours and 2 minutes. I just looked it up.
Oh, you just did? Yeah. So, see, that's the thing is, I would watch Seven Samurai again, but the problem is I wouldn't watch Endgame for probably another couple of years to show that I really have to go back and watch it, because there's so much information and so much happening inside this movie. When I was watching it in the theater, I got a little overwhelmed. I was actually kind of confused as to what was going on. I was like, there's so much happening in this movie, but it's so awesome. There's that one, and then Wolf of Wall Street. Wonder how long that one is.
That one's 3 hours and 28 minutes, I believe.
3 hours and 28 minutes. Oh, just 3 hours. Just 3 hours.
Oh, just 3 hours.
Just 3 hours. Oh, wow. Okay, so we'll go Seven Samurai, Avengers Endgame, Wolf of Wall Street by 2 minutes. All right.
Then I also would like to change my answer as well too. It's actually the longest one that I've actually watched has been Gone with the Wind, and that's actually 3 hours and 58 minutes.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
On with. Oh no, this might overtake it actually. Oh
Like,
yeah. I'm gonna have to change my
Yeah,
answer
Gone
too.
with the Wind. That because I've seen that and
What
I
did they-
didn't even think it was that long.
Oh, you know what other movie was long too? Do you know the name? You probably do know this, but do you know the name of the first, like the first longest movie ever made?
Oh,
It was called Birth of a Nation in
dude.
1915.
Oh, Birth of a Nation, dude. That film. Oh my gosh,
Set, like,
I got notes on that. The first one to set like a feature length like timing.
Yeah, it was like 3 hours or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Look it up.
Oh man, we're about to get into a serious topic here with this film. All right.
Boy. I actually did watch this.
You watched all Birth of a Nation?
Yes, I
Oh
have.
my gosh.
I put myself through it. I was sick. I had nothing else to do, and I was like, well, I got to watch this one because if I don't watch it, then I don't know what I'm doing with my life. So I watched it, and I was like, holy crap! There's a lot going on in this, and it was really good. I liked it. I wouldn't. It's not like a we need to watch this on date night. It's more like a watch it for. I would watch it for historical purposes.
Yes. Yeah, so let's talk about, that film for a quick second. So, we got to be careful because this is also a very damaging film as well too.
Yeah.
It's created in 1950. Because it's just like you got to like view like the premise of films, right?
Yep.
So, like media has a tremendous power on people, whether you're listening to this podcast or whether you're reading a book, whether you're seeing a sign on the road, it's just like all of that is media. So when this film came out, it is extremely racist.
Yeah.
I
think we gotta put like a warning thing up. This movie does contain some things that people may not be comfortable with, so just letting everyone know right now.
It is completely racist.
Yeah, it's
and that dude was a racist.
Yeah.
Like how just the stuff that they portrayed in that film.
Yeah. It's
like having like the KKK, come all that.
Yeah, and the way that they made it
well
like
too, like that was also a resurgence as well too, of that. Like not necessarily like people were forgetting about that, but the people who were like kind of on the fence, it's just like it was not a nice friendly reminder. It's like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's how powerful media is.
Yeah.
Like we can talk about like lightly now, where it's just like, but back then they just didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
It was where it's just like people would take that seriously.
Yeah. Again, it's like what happens really in Hollywood. Like we got to be careful because like what happens in Hollywood, people do pay attention to that because it is Hollywood. And with this movie, I mean, I was utterly shocked. I almost turned it off, but I was like, I kind of actually have to sit through this because this is just how the time period was. But that movie was, I mean, it was awful. Like it wasn't. It's not like, oh my god, it's such a terrible movie. It's worse than any other movie you've ever seen. But I mean, it was just they talked about a lot of stuff that was just
the premise.
Yeah, it was hard. It was really rough to get through that movie. But
because
a
lot of it was stretched.
Yeah, a lot of it was stretched.
Like, where it's just like, dude, that's not real.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, that is just a, like, an unfavorable remark.
Yeah. I think, and this may be a little controversial, but I think at least once in someone's life they should see this movie, just to kind of get like a historical point of view of like what's really going along at this time in the film, like what's really going on. Because during 1950, you have World War One, you do have World War One going on, and I think a lot of times in history classes, movies at that time frame are overlooked by major historical events. Now, I think this one, people should watch because it kind of leads up to what happens after the World Wars and during the Cold War, which is like, oh, this is real. This happened. Was a daily part of people's life, and not that this movie gives a real historical accuracy to what was going on in people's lives, but it gives a little tiny picture of yeah, this is real. This happened. This was going on. But that's also a good thing why we have movies, so that people can go back and watch what was going on at this time during the film. Why was this movie created? And I think I don't want to dive deep into this because as long as the historical part, like how it was made, everything like that, I'm not too caught up. So I don't want to speak for the author and the directors and stuff like that. But yeah, it's one of those. This is one of those movies where it was really a societal movie.
Yeah, and it has a huge, tremendous negative impact. So that is, something. But I can give it some technical, like, kudos points. Not a fan of the film, but Billy Betzler, the cinematographer for that film, he did, like, a lot of cool camera movement that wasn't necessarily a thing before.
Yeah.
Because before it's just like you would see, like, boom, like, the camera's on the ground, and that's where it's going to stay. It's on a tripod. Sick. But now he put that, on a truck. That's how they got all those nice trucking shots. He was panning. He was zooming in. It's just like a lot of that. And it wasn't like the typical, like zoom in. It's just like, no, man, dude, we're moving the camera closer. And that wasn't a thing before.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you got to look at that as well, too, where it's just like, like D.W. Griffith, bless your heart, but like, also as well, too, it's just like, it's sad to see, a film go in that direction.
Yeah. I think with any creative aspect, with any project you have, you pour your heart and soul into this, and you ask so many people about their, what they think, what can we add, what can we change, how can we make this film, the very best that we can do. And when all said is done, you hope that you did a good job, and you hope that people like it. Just the fact is that there are just some movies that you create that have negative societal impacts. But in the future, people can look back on that and use it as a learning moment. So while maybe during his lifetime, people really didn't like him for that movie.
No, dude, they loved it.
Oh, they did? Okay.
They loved it. It was great reception. This is what we're seeing now. Where it's just like, because people didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, it's now frowned upon. But back then, it wasn't necessarily frowned upon. They didn't have, like, BuzzFeed or, like, Reddit or Rotten Tomatoes, where it's just like, this film's racist. And then people be like, oh, I'm not going to see it.
Yeah.
They went to the theaters, and they're like, oh my god. Yeah, that's true. Then you had, like, the herd effect, where they started believing everything in theaters. They didn't necessarily question it. They're like, they wouldn't lie to us in a motion picture, and, that was the sad part about it. And that shows, like, the tremendous, impact on the community, because it didn't just, like, hurt, like, everybody's mentality in the ways of thinking, that way, but it also, like, think about, the people it was affecting. It's just like, it resurged, what was a dying clan.
Yeah.
And this was a enforcer where it's just like, yeah, like, I want to protect my community. I don't trust, like, dude, like, that's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think you just made a good point on that. Was like, it may or may not have like a rejuvenation with the Klan, but I think at that point, I think people had sort of moved on from that. It wasn't like huge, but I think I would assume that this movie was kind of like, oh yeah, the Klan does exist. Yeah, don't they? Yeah, they do. I think in more of outstanding communities outside the South, because that's where really the Klan kind of.
Well, I think it's everywhere. Like, I think it is everywhere, to be honest, know. We just see it in a bunch of different forms, But, like, looking at it, like, I'm just going to make an assumption, just, like, looking at that time, it was, like, kind of harder to connect those type of dots.
Yeah.
But like seeing, something on the big screen back then, it's just like, oh, dude, gotta be all for it.
Yep.
They would have not put it on the screen if it wasn't important, you
Yeah.
know? And people can necessarily like make that distinction because like we now are like, in a time where it's just like information is at our fingertips. Like back then it wasn't necessarily that. It's just like you had, the morning newspaper, and then some newspapers might do an afternoon newspaper. You might hear it on the way home from work from Betty at the bakery. But other than that, it's just like you weren't getting like all these different news sources. So seeing like that information being portrayed on a screen, and you're sitting in that chair for like 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
You're just like, oh man, all this information, you know? And you don't have like things to reference off. It's just like, man, this must be true, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a terrible thought,
It's a good point to make.
Mm-hmm.
With the I wouldn't say lack of media, because there was no lack of media back then. It was just the way things were. Yeah, word of mouth, and I mean, if you saw something in like in like the local paper, then you would understand it. But I think a lot of it again was word of mouth, and movies like that, and I think there's probably a bunch of movies before a whole lot of big media was like, people were like, wait, is that really true? And then they have to go around, they have to find out, with the letters in the newspapers and stuff like that. Yeah, the screen can have a massive impact on a person. It can lead from somebody realizing this is what I want to do in life, to somebody going and seeing a film going, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about how this movie makes something. I want to write a book on this. Oh my goodness, they just gave me an idea for dot 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 dot. And in so many different forms, and that's why movies are so magical, because it's not a blanket statement on anyone. It speaks a different message to every person that walks in that theater. I mean, some people may have the same thought, but they're probably going to take it a little bit differently than you do. And that's the beauty of it, is you have a director, you have a producer, you have someone behind the camera, you have people writing the scripts, you have the people in front of the camera, you have the marketers and everything coming together, putting this project, their heart and soul, all the creative minds to this. And it comes out on the big screen, and people flock to the theaters to see it, and you just hope it goes well. And hey, you know what? Maybe at the end of the year you win an award for it. Hey, that's a little nice thing to put in your trophy case. And it's just, I think it's a booster, because with every project, once you cross that item off your list, man, does that feel good. And when you go to that movie and you're like, I wanted to see this movie, and you finally go and you see, like, that was a great movie. Can't wait for the second one to come out. And the creativity with movies. We're gonna talk about creativity probably a lot in this podcast.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun, and movies are just they're fantastic.
Oh yeah, and I think what I really enjoy about movies, we all have that one movie that we hold truly to our heart, but it shows us like what's the possibility. It's like let's make this like piece of fiction, right, a reality, and how do I do that, or it's just like we're really working through a tough emotion right now, and how do I go and escape? And it's always been like, through like media, like whatever we decide to, like dive ourselves into, to forget about, the times for a bit, whether it's a happy movie, sad movie, it's just like that catharsis, in Greek theater. Hold up, it's going wrap around. At an end of a play, they would have a 20-minute section. You couldn't leave the theater, but it was called the catharsis, where it's just like where they would all go around and they would talk about the theater for 20 minutes, what they just saw with each other, and it goes back on that different perspective as well too, where it's just like when you leave, you feel inspired, you want to create, you want to do something, and that catharsis, sometimes is the chapter that we need to close in our own personal lives to keep moving forward.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think really with the theater part of it, I've noticed it a little more now. I've opened my eyes to the more, you know what's really behind the movies, the actors behind the camera. Like, I watch probably a lot of talk shows where actors are coming on and they're telling like this is what you got to do. This is kind of the method you got to use. Tom Hanks did it with Tom Holland on the Graham Norton show, and he was talking about how over and over again they just do cuts. They just do scenes, and it's pressuring and all that kind of stuff. But you look behind the camera and you focus in on the actor, and you see. All I see is I've done theater before, and all I saw was just someone playing it. Leonardo DiCaprio in Django, for example. I mean, here you have probably one of the most famous actors in the world. He comes on and he's able to go into that character and just flow. And you see a lot of these actors able to do that. And the beauty of it is that they're just having so much fun making these movies. I mean, making a movie is so much fun. You know, it's so creative, and I love the fact that we have so much media now that we're able to see those actors telling their stories. You go on YouTube and you search up Emma Watson, you're going to get a bunch of freaking interviews and compilation moments and bloopers and stuff like that. You Google Leonardo DiCaprio and you see the same thing, and it's so cool to see the behind the scenes footage and see what it really is like to be an actor. And I think every person really likes to see, I think a lot of people like to see behind the scenes. I didn't at first because I didn't want to ruin the magic, but now it just makes me love the movie even more.
Yeah. I think, behind the scenes is like a good and a bad thing, so like a bad thing because it creates a rabbit hole of like, oh man, like what else do they do?
Yeah, it's like the Star Wars documentary you're talking about.
Oh yeah.
And
yes.
And
how I got into filmmaking,
Yeah.
Went and bought a special edition of Empire Strikes Back. But I just wanted to watch the movie, watched all, whatever it was, an hour and a half of how they made that movie in the beginning. And then finally the movie came on. I was like, oh my gosh, about time. And then, but it created a rabbit hole, so we were just like, oh man, I want to know how they do this next.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a time back where there was a bunch of movies. Like if you got like the special edition, it came with like a second disc, and on the disc, like the bloopers and the behind the scenes, and they'd have interviews with cast members and stuff like that. Man, I missed that. I missed like, oh, you would watch behind the scenes stuff, and you pop out the first disc and you pop in the second disc. I think the first one I did that with was I think the National Treasure movie. They had a second disc that had like a bunch of behind the scenes features. And what's kind of funny is the cameras that aren't shooting the film, that aren't being edited, like the edited stuff, it looks so much more real. But then when you see the behind the scenes stuff, I was like, that looks kind of like, I don't know, cringy. And then you have to remember that yourself that's why it's called behind the scenes, because you see the real behind the movie. And I think National Treasure was like one of the first movies I think I fell in love with. And the only reason was my oldest sister decided that for a festival or a fair or something like that, she was going to debunk all the history that was found in National Treasure. And this was before Google. So she actually had a stack of history books and watched the movie over and over and over. I think she watched it like, I'm not exaggerating with this, she probably watched that movie over 30 or 40 times, and was able to read back the movie to us line by line by line because she watched so much. But she was actually able to debunk a lot of the history stuff in there. It was real freaking cool. But then Google came out and ruined that whole experience. So, but yeah, that was. Oh my god! What was the first movie you like the first movie you were like, this is my movie, this is mine, that you fell in love with?
Fell in love with. Let's see. I don't know about movies. I think that one is always changing uh, from time to time. But the shows like this, I'm going to go to television. We'll have a whole show about
Yes. Yes, we will.
television. Because we're starting to reach that time. But movie, golly, I was like, this is my movie. Um, I would say I'm not a hipster.
Okay.
That is a complete indie film, but I really definitely do enjoy that film. Actually, quite a bit. Um,
2012.
I'm sorry.
2012. That's when
Yep.
it came out. Okay, interesting. I have to watch it. I don't think I've ever actually heard of it.
Yeah, because I just said it. And, yeah. No. I really enjoy that movie, and it talks about the film premise right off the bat, and it kind of goes off, into a creative journey of an artist, trying to figure out why he wants to create art, and there's a bunch of good conversations throughout that film, so that are really grounding, for any artist, that is, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
We gotta do one like an extended one where we just we make a list of like movies we've seen, movies we haven't seen, like movies like that we haven't seen from a personal thing, but like the other person's got to watch. We gotta do that sometime because that would be a fun list to create because
oh yeah, we should just start creating that list right now, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just like you gotta watch these ones by this date.
yeah
And then we can go back and forth.
yeah, go back and forth on the movies. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think this is a good stopping
We'll
point.
we'll stop right here,
Yeah. Um,
because we could keep going on this topic, and I think we covered like actually quite a bit.
yeah. Yeah, it was I mean, again,
And we didn't even scratch the surface.
we didn't even scratch the surface. Like I think honestly, we probably could have an episode where we go through the decades of movies, like starting in
easily.
1950s, and really talk about like the significant impact that a lot of those movies had. And again, that'll be for another time. But
And even then, we wouldn't even cover all of it because there's just so much. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
there's so many movies. But well, yeah, we'll go ahead and end it here.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for joining in.
This is the Horseman Podcast.
Yeah, it's the Horseman Podcast. We'll see you guys next week. Don't forget, there is a new clip coming out tomorrow, and this episode of the podcast will drop on Tuesday. If you guys haven't, go out into the channel and check those out below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We hope you guys have a fantastic Saturday, and peace out.
Take care. Live well.